The question with Imaginary is, should Imaginary have left the page and been put on the screen? And in my opinion, no, I don't think it should have. If you're wondering if you should watch Imaginary in the theater, I would say skip it. Now, granted, I'm not the target audience for this film. I think this film is really geared towards a younger audience to introduce them to horror. I didn't find that there was anything in this film that was even remotely scary, even with the jump scares. And while I do like Blumhouse because I've seen Five Nights at Freddy's and I've seen Megan. Megan was a decent movie. I was lukewarm on Five Nights at Freddy's, even though I did play the first game. I felt that it had a good look, but I just didn't really get into the story. And with something like Imaginary, it's kind of crazy to me how bad this movie can be with 3 writers, and it is all over the place. Blumhouse is one of those production companies where I like what they're doing. They'll take an unknown director, they'll put a little bit of money behind them, and they'll let them make the film that they want to make. So in this case, the director, Jeff Wadlow, has actually done Truth or Dare, Fantasy Island, or Kick-Ass 2, so this is not an up-and-coming director. I can't understand the reasoning behind why they would go forward with making this film. I don't watch trailers typically, and I also basically do a media blackout where I'm not reading any articles. I don't know anything about the film other than that it was produced by Blumhouse, so I come in blind. With the horror film, one of the things you have to do at the beginning is you have to kind of set up the world, right? You're getting to know the characters, you're setting up the world, and then you have to figure out what are the rules of this world. I'm going to get into spoilers, and I think at the end of the day, this movie is a pass for me. I would say skip it, but I guess if it's on streaming and you're really bored, maybe watch it, but I would say this is a complete pass for me. I don't know if this is going to be a Chucky-like movie or Ted-like movie where the bear is going to animate and do something at some point. There's a little bit of that in the introductory scenes where they're playing hide and seek, and it seems like, hey, this Chauncey bear could really be moving around. So you have your typical setup. You've got the daughter. She's got her imaginary friend, Chauncey the bear, and it's talking to her and having her do a scavenger hunt for things that are good, things that are bad, things that might scare her. And so that kind of sets up this interesting idea of, okay, what is this Chauncey the bear plotting? But that really doesn't go anywhere. And we might as well just skip to the end of the film because there's not a whole lot of content in the middle that is very compelling. So I know Blumhouse is typically working with smaller budgets, and that's usually fine. In this movie, I just felt like I was pulled out of the movie constantly because I just wasn't buying the set design. I wasn't buying the costumes. I'm wondering who greenlit this stuff. It doesn't really look that good, and there's too much going on that doesn't make any sense. There's no cohesive theme to any of it. It's like we have Chauncey, the imaginary world version of him that's this giant bear, but then we also have this MC Escher looking imaginary world, and then there's some other ghoul-faced thing that has flashing eyes, and what do these things really want, and why are the people there? And then at one point the actors look all bug-eyed in the imaginary world, and it's supposed to be creepy, but it really just looks really bad, and I just don't understand how I'm supposed to stay invested in the film when it all looks so hokey. I'm really at a loss of what to say for this film because any of the portal stuff, while I don't typically love fantastical elements in my films, I was hoping that it would be a little bit more interesting, and unfortunately it just came off as hokey because I didn't think that the costumes were great, and it just didn't really set a tone that I felt was even ominous or foreboding. It just felt very, very goofy to me. Not once did I feel creeped out or anything like that, whereas with the film Megan, there were definitely a few instances where I felt, okay, this could get interesting, this is a little creepy, I wonder what's going to happen. And in Imaginary, that never happened, not even once. Now, I did like the fact that they put in a little twist at the end, that it seemed like the movie was wrapping up and that it was a happy ending, and yet she was still in the imaginary world. And I do like twists like that, so I felt that they did have a little bit of something there. What I'd really prefer to see in a film like this that has this type of a budget is do something interesting, but rein it in a little bit so it feels a little bit more real. And I think this film, that was never the intention. It's not supposed to be realistic. It's imaginary, right? And so my general preference is for films that have a hint of the fantastical. They have elements that are supernatural, and this movie went to imaginary land, and I couldn't buy any of it. It was just far too fantastical. It was far too out there. None of the sets or costumes looked very good, and it all just took me right out of the movie. I wasn't sure what to do with it. I think this film might land with a younger audience, maybe one of your first horror films, but overall it just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I didn't know what the moral of the story was, and the motivations of the evil characters didn't really make sense to me either. I guess they're supposed to feed off of people's imaginations, but again, there was nothing done with it that I felt was truly unique or different. And actually, there were probably too many ideas here because this was written by 3 different people. And so maybe there were too many ideas, too many cooks in the kitchen. I don't know, but it just fell really flat for me. I imagine the director coming up on the last few days of filming, wondering, wow, is this really going to come together? I'm getting a little worried, and I wonder how it's going to be. And then he gets in the editing bay with the editor, and they're piecing everything together, and it starts to look like, wow, this really did not turn out anything like we imagined the script to be. And I almost feel like this would be one of those movies that would benefit from being canceled and being a tax write-off. I just think Blumhouse has so many scripts that are so much better that could get a chance. And I know that they're trying to be creative maybe and do something different, but this just did not land at all. Yes, it's different, but it's different in a bad way. It's not something that you should see. And if you do see it, okay, maybe stream it if you're really bored, but for me, it's going to be a skip. There's so much work that goes into making a film that I just don't even want to say anything more about this one because I don't have anything nice to say. I am again going to put a date and a time and a link in the description. Next week, we're going to be talking about Knox Goes Away. So if you get a chance to see the film, come and join me. Let's talk about the movie and let's talk about what we liked or didn't like about the film. This channel is, again, really meant to be a discussion channel and not just have me preaching at the camera, giving my opinion about the movie. We'll see you next week.